Hello, and welcome back to Damn Kind Conversations. I'd like to start today's episode with a tiny little extra something. It's a bit of a behind the scenes into the mind of myself and how I'm going about producing this podcast. If you'd like to listen to this, stand by, or you can skip to the next section. But felt like it was an important thing to share before we kick off today's episode. Hope you enjoy. So, it is June 9th. I started producing these reflective episodes the best part of 3-4 months ago, but it takes a lot of time. But also, there's a lot of new going on in my life. New job, new relationship, many new wonderful things happening all at once, and I've just had to sort of take a rebalance on the pace at which I do this, because before I had a lot more free time. That being said, I very much enjoy doing this, and I want to always find a way to do it in a way where it feels manageable. Which brings me on to one of my points, which is like, I'm not in my bedroom or my study. I am in France visiting family. And this is a moment where I just thought I can squeeze a little bit of time here, do this my way, share something, nudge the project forward, and it feels good. But I feel like I kind of need to explain that context for some strange reason. And I think it's maybe because I think that those that listen to this podcast know me personally and would appreciate just a little update on the story on how it's going. So I'm deciding to go this route rather than just pretending that no time has passed. I've produced 10,000 hours worth of podcasts. I'd rather say a lot of time has passed. I've not produced a lot of podcast episodes, but I'm still thinking about it and I'm still moving the project forwards. So is there anything else I want to say here? Just wait for the dogs to calm down. I think I might just say the following. You'll see that as these episodes are being edited over a longer period of time, I sort of updating my thinking. I think I introduce things like words like insight, for example, and research questions, which I'm not sure everyone is familiar with, but I'd like to think that most people can kind of like infer what it means. But essentially what I'm saying is, what are my reflections? What are my learnings? What have I found as important? So as I figure out my own taxonomy, just bear with me while I maybe segue between using words like learning or insight. I'm not sure which way I'll go with the language, so I'm just going to wait until that language emerges as I continue to do these episodes, rather than retroactively go back, re-record every episode and try and polish it to the nth degree, which is something I probably would have done in previous years. This is messy, figuring out as I go, and I want to include you in that process. That is about it. So without further ado, let's get into my third reflection for season 1, which I'd like to talk to you about now. Is kindness good or a hindrance? How can we maximize empathy without getting lost in the other? And what is your empowered move? Today, the broad stroke themes for what I'd like to express revolve around the following: intentional kindness, something called niceness syndrome, which we'll get into in a bit, empathetic integrity, boundaries, and love. So, yeah, let's start with a little personal anecdote. Reflecting on the nature of kindness, I've often pondered this role, that kindness plays in my life. When I was young, I was labeled such a nice boy, and it clung to me persistently. I used to hate it. I used to think that nice was boring, and it was only exaggerated by hearing it from teachers and old people and even crushes, for the want of a better word, where I thought, great, I'm in the friend zone. I'm that person that's very vanilla. But I think there's a difference between niceness and kindness, and we'll start to get into that a little bit now. And I think I've truly come to appreciate what kindness is and what it means to me. Kindness is I've learned, it's intrinsically tied to empathy, the art of stepping into another's shoes. Yet this journey into understanding others can sometimes lead us astray. It's led me astray as I investigate other people's needs more than my own. Throughout my research and conversations in this project, I've come to appreciate that kindness is unwavering, intentional. It's an act of service.
Well, it puts you in literally and metaphorically, you're all facing the same way. So that you don't need to check in and I don't need to go, I've got these 3 things, which should I do first? No, I've done that. And then everybody is aligned to that.
When we get inquisitive about somebody else's ideas, when we show up to their ideas with deeper curiosity, compassion, respect, when we play with those ideas and build on, those are all acts of kindness and generosity. I found being in a creative field that you can't be generative if you can't be generous. It all has a momentum in exchange. People won't bring their most creative ideas, their most creative selves, if they aren't coming into a space of kindness. We don't put out our most risky, our bravest, our boldest ideas if we don't feel safe. And we can't be kind to others and create safe and brave spaces if we don't start by being kind to ourselves.
The next part to kindness is insecure, superficial kindness, which is also known as niceness syndrome.
There's a huge difference between being nice and being kind.
Would you explain the difference, please?
Niceness is, it's a level of courtesy, there's a level of respect, but in certain situations, it's quite superficial. I'm just being nice. I was just being nice to them. How many times do you hear that? And I think that's something that, sure, be respectful. We need to be courteous and respectful now more than ever to one another. But being kindness is an action.
A couple of factors go into creating the nice guy. And one can be something that could be helpful to explore in therapy. And it can be a rupture with a father figure and a man deciding, I do not want to be like him. Whether father figure was emotionally unavailable, or there was some neglect there, or had anger issues, something like that, and a guy deciding I'm going to be that way. Another way that I've noticed is this internalization of a lot of fear around being the toxic masculine dude. And so the response to the collective disdain for toxic masculinity is, what if I'm just the most agreeable guy in the room? And if that compromises me and my integrity, it's worth it. Because the fear of being considered the asshole or the jerk, like the shame of, is just too scary. You're showing up to every social activity you've been invited to. You're not saying no, even when saying no would really serve you, because then you get to avoid all this criticism. So you're constantly trying to be in other people's brains and think, what could I do to ensure that everything I say or do is approved in their minds? I'm not good enough is a really common belief. The shame that it creates is so real. And shame feels like shit. We all want to run from the feeling of shame. And so whether that's scrolling or whatever a preferred numbing behavior is, going for a run, whatever it looks like, humans do not want to experience shame. So it's totally natural to have coping techniques. But shame is at the root of nice guy syndrome.
So the third pillar to kindness is around personal boundaries. And I'd, at the risk of giving Katherine too much airtime, I'd also just like to circle back to something else she shared around her personal experience of Tantra and a point in which she decided that she'd had enough of the experience.
Saying no to continued Tantra experiences. I pushed so many of my edges that I'm feeling raw in that realm. And a lesson that I'm in the process of learning is, when do we push past fear because it's stretching us and we're doing things like starting a podcast and we're doing things like starting a business and we're overcoming the fear of what's unfamiliar? And when is fear telling us stop? Having been in experiences in my life where I have been physically violated, to be in a setting where, with men in particular, I'm expressing my fears, desires, boundaries, and they're receiving them and 100% honoring them, has been really important. Some of the situations started to feel scary, and scary is different for me than, wow, I'm stretching myself into something new. And this feels like I'm about to do a public speaking gig, and whoosh, scary feels different. And sometimes that can be absolutely the medicine. And this was a no for me. And listening to that no feels really empowered.
The journey through the realms of kindness and empathy, underscored by clear boundaries, is not just a path towards external harmony, but a deeply rooted act of self-love and a genuine desire to extend love to others. I'd like to finish on a few reflective thoughts and questions that could be useful to someone out there, or a pleasant reminder to myself when I'm in need. In what ways does nurturing self-love influence the capacity to be kind to others? Recognizing that genuine kindness starts with how we treat ourselves, we see that self-compassion is critical. By respecting our own needs and limits, we model how we can wish to interact with the world. This form of self-love isn't selfish. Rather, it's a necessary precondition for authentic and sustainable kindness. How do we offer kindness while maintaining our own sense of well-being? Acknowledging that our capacity for kindness isn't limitless is crucial. Setting boundaries is an act of self-care that benefits both ourselves and those we interact with. Ensuring that our kindness is heartfelt and enduring. In conclusion, if our acts of kindness resonate with our inner values, leave us with a feeling that we are enriched rather than depleted, then we're truly tapping into its power. I hope you enjoyed this most recent episode. Please come back again in due course for my fourth and final reflection to this season. Thanks so much.